be here. Not to share my screen. Move myself down. Hey, everybody. So this is chapter 2. And thank you so much for transitioning with me to this online portion because I don't really want you all out there in the rain. It just started raining. It looks really bad. And it's not just rain because I wouldn't cancel for just rain, but it is the storm that's coming. And they threaten tornadoes, not in Tallahassee, but weather is so unpredictable that I can't have y'all out in it. Okay. All right. So this is chapter 2, and let's get started. All right. So chapter 2 is going to be talking about communication and safety. Okay. So communication is a process of exchanging information with others by sending and receiving messages. How is that done? It's done through verbal and nonverbal communication. So just think about the communication that we do. For me, myself, I had to work really hard with not doing the nonverbal communication. I always had like really pertinent facial expressions where you're just like, oh, something just happened. Let me look at Sharina's face. I can tell what she's thinking. So I worked really hard with just keeping a straight face or just smiling and keeping that smile. So you wouldn't see my non-verbal communication, but it's more than just your face. It is the gestures. It is the body language. Have you ever had a conversation with someone, coworker, family member, friend, your residents, and they're saying one thing, but their body language is telling you something different? That's it. What are we looking for as CNAs? We're looking for holistic answers, both their body language and their verbal communication. Okay. Look at this picture here. I see maybe a coworker, two coworkers talking. The lady here is, get my mouse. The lady is, she looks open. She looks like she's asking questions. She looks really inviting. And then her coworker looks really sad. He's closed. He's not accepting anything that she's saying. And he doesn't want to be put in this situation. That's what I see. So body language is something that people will look at and they'll get answers from. Sometimes it's not right. Sometimes, if you watch YouTube, there are body language experts and they analyze everything. What about you? Are you good at reading body language? I bet you are. I bet some of you are. All right. So, other types of communication that we want to have professionally, we want to give reports. And when we're giving a report, we're giving it to our other CNAs that are coming on after us. We're giving it to our CNAs that might be watching our patients while we're going to lunch. We're also giving report to our nurses. So big things that we report on: falls, complaints of pain, mental status changes. If you know your residents and all of a sudden, or you can kind of see that decline, they're not really acting right. They're not acting how they used to act. They used to talk to me and have good conversations, and now they're just giving me one word answers. Or they might be eating and they've always finished like half of the meal. Now they're only taking 2 or 3 bites. Those are things that we want to report because sometimes it happens gradually. Sometimes it's all of a sudden. The other thing that we want to report are vital signs. Vital signs are your pulse, your respirations, your blood pressure. Those are things that we report because those are abnormal, especially for the patient that is critical and they can't tell you what's happening. So you as the CNA, you will give report to your nurses and relay the message. Okay. Ooh. By the way, you have all of these PowerPoint um, guides that we're going over today. And also chapter 2 in your book, I will be posting quiz and a little bit of homework for you. Okay. So we won't miss out on anything. How do you walk into the room and communicate with your patients? You are introducing yourself. You are greeting them by their name. You're doing that indirect care, letting them know what is happening, what you're doing. You're using that professional but simple language, not those terms that we talked about yesterday, the slang language that only you and your group of friends might know, or you and your generation might know. And then we also spoke about some of your residents are down with the new lingo, but a lot of them aren't. Okay. So you can read your patients, you will know them, you'll know your residents and know what you can and can't do. But always start off with the simple conversation, the simple language, not even those medical terms with the residents. Of course, you're going to use those medical terms with your CNAs and with your nurses. Okay. So we do want to use their first and last name or whatever their preferences is with our residents. We don't want to call them baby, sugar, sweetheart, grandma, mama. Okay. Those are degrading. And unless they prefer to be called that, we don't want to do that. So when you're going for your test, like, okay, sweetheart, are they really your sweetheart? Because they're older than you. um, and sometimes, like if I am at, not really at the grocery store, but if I'm going to get something to eat and they call me sugar or love or something, I'm like, she's younger than me. I don't understand why she's calling me sugar. So it's just funny, but it is something where we call them Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith instead of grandma or mom. Okay. All right. So this is subjective and objective information. Subjective information is objective information is what other people can see and what we can see ourselves. So we'll use all of our senses, what we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we touch. The only thing that we don't do with objective information as far as our residents is what we taste. Because what are you tasting with your residents? Hopefully nothing. So objective information is what we call the signs. You've heard of signs and symptoms? Signs are things that we can see and other people can see too. So if there is a rash, I can see it objectively. I can see it with my eyes. I can feel it with my hands. Of course, I want to have gloves on, but that's objective. Subjective are things that no one can see, but it is what the resident reports. So we can't see that the resident is in pain unless we see their gestures, like they're grimacing, they're holding themselves in, they're holding a part of their body. Okay, so objectively, we see that they're in pain, but subjectively, they have to tell us. something hurts, my stomach hurts, I have a headache. That is objective, and those are called symptoms. So objective is those signs that we see with we use our senses for. We hear it, we might see it, we might touch it, we might smell it. Subjective are things that are symptoms and we can't observe them. Those are observations and feelings that the resident lets us know. Okay, incontinence. We should all know about incontinence. That is the inability to control the bladder and the bowels. Okay. All right. So look at this diagram right here. This is you as a CNA. You can smell a resident's body, and we spoke about that this week. Their odor. Okay. We can use our eyes and we can look at the resident's appearance. Are they hurting? Do they look really sleepy? Do they look like they need to take a bath? Do they look like they are in a lot of pain? We can hear what is going on with the resident. Are they using appropriate words? Is their tone still the same? Are they breathing? Do we need to start CPR? And then our touch. Are the residents cold and clammy, like they're having diabetic episode or something? Is one part of the resident's body super cold or super hot compared to another part? Do they have a fever? Okay. And is it something where I need to report to the nurse or talk to one of my coworkers, my fellow CNAs, to see if they can help me? You are also doing an assessment on your residents and you're reporting back to them. Even if you're walking in and you're talking to them or you're feeding them, you're always looking at those signs. Okay, so roots is the basic part of the word. So the root is the basic meaning of the word. Prefix is something that comes before the word. Suffix is something that comes after the word. I think I'll do a little bit of workbook work with these. Okay. All right, we talked about cliches yesterday, those slang terms. We already talked about that. Oh, defense mechanisms. So defense mechanisms, these are barriers to protect us. And the residents have those too. So they might have denial, projection, displacements. They might go through all of these things, and that's through effective communication. We will talk about this more with our death and dying chapter. Okay, culturally, how are we different from our residents? How are we different from our coworkers? Culturally, how are we different from our parents and a different generation? And then how are we the same? Okay, so culture is a system of learned beliefs and behaviors that is practiced by a group of people and is often passed down from one generation to the next. So do you have traditions in your family or in your culture that's usually passed down from one generation to the next? Or how are you like have any superstitions that your parents used to do or your grandparents used to do, and now you're just like, yeah, I'm not that. I always think about uh, New Year's, New Year's Day. We have always had black eyed peas and greens, some kind of greens. The greens were to have money and be prosperous for that year, and that black eyed peas were for luck. Okay. So I started to buck the system, and my mom every year would ask, okay, what are you doing that's green? Are you gonna cook the black eyed peas? And I'm like, nope, not doing that this year. Why not? It's just for luck and for money. I said, Mom, do you really think that that is for luck and money? Or is that just something that's really a superstition? And I don't believe in superstitions. She said, yeah, well, it's just a tradition. I said, okay, well, if it's just a tradition, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going to cook what I want to cook because I don't really like black eyed peas. I love green, but I only ate a little bit of the black eyed peas when I was growing up. And I said, oh, well, I guess I'm going to get a little bit of luck since I didn't eat all of this. And it's just a tradition, but it's really superstition. I could talk to my mom like that, but I would never say that to my grandparents because they would have me sit down and eat a whole plate of black eyed peas and greens and cornbread. It sounds really good, but you don't need it. Okay. So what traditions, what superstitions, what part of your culture makes sense? What part of your culture doesn't make sense? And what part of your culture for your generation are you changing? And you're thinking about the future of um, you and your family. Let me know. All right. So with culture, that really influences the way that we communicate. With that culture, we learn about our comfort level of people touching us and who we want to touch us. We learn about eye contact because think about our Asian family. In Asian culture, they might look at you in your eyes. They might not. Men are a little bit different than women. In certain cultures, you are supposed to smile and shake your head, even if you don't understand, which is a communication barrier because you're thinking, oh, this person understands English. They're shaking their head and smiling, and they're just doing that out of respect. They're not doing that because they really understand. So we want to try to make sure that we respect other people's culture. We learn what their culture is, just to make sure with like our Muslim population, our Muslim family, they're supposed to some parts of religion, their religion, they're not supposed to have anyone see their hair. Okay. Unless it is their husband and small children and their father, of course, the women in their family. So if you have a Muslim resident, um, and you're doing their hair, especially as a man, you might need to talk to their family members or talk to them about, do I need to get a head wrap? Can another CNA actually do their hair for me? Or we'll wait for the family members to come in and do it. Let's also talk about the need for kind of like men versus women when we're doing baths. Some cultures are a little bit different. The other cultural change is food. If you are of a certain culture, like Hindu, they don't eat pork. Some people, they might not eat meat at all. They might be a vegetarian. So with that, we have to look at how are we feeding, or what kind of diet, what kind of food is on their plate, what is still going to be good in nourishing for them, but also respecting that we're not cooking and putting meats on their plates, and expecting them to eat it. That's why they're not eating, because they're not supposed to be eating pork and chicken, and they grew up like that the entire time. But we're putting it on their plate and we're forcing it down and not understanding why. All right. All right. So I'm going to stop this video and start the next video. I wanted to have these videos just in little sections so you can consume some of it, take a break, consume some more, take a break, and I'll be right back.